Today on Mental Health News Radio, Kristin welcomes Prairie Conlon. Prairie is a clinical counselor, public speaker, and the host of The Animal Effect on Mental Health News Radio Network. Prairie specializes in working with military service members and their families. She also has extensive knowledge in animal-assisted therapy and believes strongly in emotional support animals. Today, they'll be talking about pre- and post-election stress. Thanks for tuning in.
I wanna try and take in all the highs, embrace them for more than a moment's time. I want you, please don't move when I push you away. I know I contradict myself some days, but will you ride the lows with me?
Welcome to Mental Health News Radio. I am your host, Kristin Sunanta Walker. Our goal is to help discussions about mental health be a regular part of your daily life, no different than discussions about physical health. Mental illness can be a topic of discussion under the umbrella of mental health, along with so many other topics. This show is the original program on mentalhealthnewsradionetwork.com. Our network of shows are played in over 180 countries and cover more topics under that umbrella than you can possibly imagine. We were talking about mental health long before it became cool and popular to talk about, and thank goodness it has become so popular. We have incredible guests, advocates, patients, experts, people. Thank you for tuning in and enjoy our intro music, a song named Lows, written by Aubrey Toon. You can find her music at www.aubreytoone.com.
That night when I started praying, I cried. Will you ride the lows with me? Will you ride the lows with me? When I'm down, my vision gets blurry.
Prairie Conlon, it's so nice to have you back.
Yeah, I always love our conversations.
Me too. And we're going to talk about pre and post election stress and how to deal with it. I want to talk about one thing that we just talked about personally, which is why not every therapist does this, but because there's plenty on this network even that are ardent Republicans, others are ardent Democrats, and that's their choice to do that. But most are. I don't talk about politics publicly, so, and I know why. But can you explain why that is?
For sure. So, therapist self-disclosure of political preference and perceived shared values with patients, that can impact the therapeutic alliance. And in any therapeutic relationship, we may have differing views, but therapy, it's not about that. It's about support and finding solutions that work for that person in a non-judgmental and safe place. So disclosing where I am at would bring into question why I vote the way I do, which would in turn bring in a lot of my own personal beliefs and personal experiences, which again is not the point of counseling. So having a safe place for someone to express their feelings and views is how people can examine and explore what does and doesn't work for them. I've had a lot of people come in as clients and say, this is what I've got going on with my family. And, I'm having a hard time because I feel immediately attacked. And they're like, I just want to discuss my political views, but it's not safe to do it anywhere. And so then they like to have a conversation with me about it, which, this is kind of a newer phenomena. I actually have never had anybody come to me to discuss that, but I've been hearing a lot with clients that they don't have a safe place to do it because everybody's immediately on the offensive. And so that's why I remain neutral.
Agreed. I mean, I think people pretty much know how I feel, but I remain neutral in terms of, and I'm not a therapist, so, I'm not guided, but I do think about it in terms of this network. I want mental health does not care whether you're
Right.
independent, libertarian,
Absolutely.
Republican. So, yeah. So what I say about that is we have people on this network that believe the opposite of what I do. And that is okay. And I have had people, it's more than okay. I've had people give me a lot of grief about that. And I'm like, hey, you know what? Go set up an all libertarian network or whatever your beliefs are, and,
right.
you know, have fun with that. You know, that's not what this is about. But I'm not a therapist, so I do say what I believe and don't believe. But what's interesting is it's so true. What the thing about when you know someone, it's really hard to hate. Well, not unless they're a total sociopath, and you can feel hate, and it's totally justified. But anyway, when you know, there are people that I absolutely love. I just love them so much, and they absolutely believe the opposite of me about some things that are vital. And I love them so much, and they love me
Yes.
so much that we just, you know, don't talk about those things, or
Right.
we agree to disagree
Right.
or whatever. But if I didn't know them, if I was just behind a computer and tapping away, so much easier to, you know, feel hate and
Right.
anger and whatever than when you know them.
And that's the scary thing. I think that just with the social media, it's so easy to just, you know, throw out some kind of a comment here or there, versus if you're saying it to somebody's face. It's easier to be disrespectful to other people's beliefs when you don't have to look them in the face. And that's been, you know, part of it, I think, is that, and I feel like it has actually increased the way that people can be disrespectful to each other in person, because that's kind of the norm, you know, Facebook fighting. That's normal now. People think it's funny. I know people too that enjoy engaging in that. They're like, that's why I do social media, is because it's fun to get people upset, and they go do it for entertainment purposes. But I feel like it has really kind of bred this, you know, this culture of, it's okay to talk to people this way, and it's okay to be disrespectful to them and how they feel. And I think that's, you know, a real tragedy.
Agreed. It is a extremely real tragedy. I think it's replaced road rage. Not that people still don't have road rage, but that, you know, road rage was such a big thing, and now we don't really hear about it as much. But what we do hear about is, you know, the clacking behind the keyboard rage, the passive aggressive stuff that goes on, you know, like, really, if you are posting your emotional guts out all day, every day, based on whatever you're feeling at any moment, that is not healthy.
No,
It just,
no, it's not. It's not, because you're not venting in an appropriate way. You're not venting to, you know, get to a solution. You're just throwing out ugliness, and then you're going to receive ugliness back, and it's just going to continue into a vicious cycle. You know, there's just such a lack of positivity in everyone now, and I think, you know, and just a feeling of doom so much with so many clients. I've been telling them, especially lately, avoid social media right now. Avoid posting any of those things. And it's completely fine. I know a lot of people, they really enjoy that, but it really does impact a lot of people's mental health when they see friends or family posting things that are different, and then getting really defensive and nasty with each other. It breaks families apart. I've seen it break families apart.
absolutely. And it's also, you know, even if all you post are positive things, or just however you're feeling at the moment, just the amount of time that someone spends going there as an outlet, it's not a road that leads to anywhere good when you are
Right.
taking up that much time to putting that much into social media. Just I'm like almost I'm on it for work stuff, but it's posted by other people. And rarely, maybe now once a month, do I go on and post a picture of my dog, and that's it. I do not look around. I don't go look at other people's stuff.
Yeah, and
I've
yours
just
is one of the ones that I still look at, because I like to see pictures of dogs and babies. That's what I want to see. So I look at yours.
Yeah, that's all I care about. I don't
How
want
are your pups doing, by the way?
They're doing really well. They're doing really well. It's interesting how our animals are also, don't forget, listeners, your animals are feeling your stress. It is October 28th of
Mhm.
2020, and we are all waiting for this historic election to take place. Regardless of where you sit on the political aisle, this is a
Mhm.
globally stressful time. And
Yes.
our
Mm.
pets are feeling maybe what we don't even want to acknowledge.
Right, for sure. And on top of that, chasing them around with costumes to put on them. So they're really feeling it.
Right, because Halloween is on.
And I do it too. I'm not saying that I'm not discouraging that. My one of my mini schnauzers is a unicorn. And it's just like, I have so much joy and happiness watching her wear this little unicorn outfit that I'm like, come here, you. I'm sorry, but you need to pounce around in this for a little bit. You're hilarious. There you go. There's one way to combat political stress right there. Is dress up your animals and in a nice way and give them treats for their work for you. But absolutely.
Well, I have a question for you since you are the therapist
Mhm.
here. So some things that go on, I've just been so upset about. You and I did a show about the dog attack, and then I had someone that
Mhm.
came into where I live and put their hands on me and tried to pretended they were going to open mouth kiss me because I was wearing a mask.
Mhm.
I've had some stuff happen that have just been
Yeah.
a
Just
what?
kind of disrespectful stuff.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
and and so has so many people. Oh my gosh, across the board. The number of
Mhm.
first responders, for example, that we have on this network that have dealt with all kinds of horrible stuff as they're getting off of a 12 to 14-hour shift. And
Right.
it's everybody is dealing with this. So I'm not, crying about mine, but what
Mm.
happens when you have that much coming at you all the time because of things that are, this is not, I didn't create this. I mean, we did in that we elected whoever we elected, but it isn't like, oh, I'm just looking for drama. Everybody's got drama in their face no matter what. So
Mhm.
what I see happening is I get to the point where I don't even want to go to that anger place when a new thing crops up because it's stressful to go there. But I also don't want to be
Mhm.
complacent about what are horrible things that, have been going on. So what, as a therapist, when someone comes to you about something like that, what's a sort of a guideline to help someone navigate that?
Right, right. Well, first of all, I would acknowledge that. I mean, that's upsetting that somebody would come into your place and uh, basically what that tells me is they're disrespecting your boundaries. You have a mask on because for whatever reason, we don't know why people are wearing masks. I've been really appalled by how people react to people who do wear masks, who don't wear masks. I mean,
Yes, me
and
too. Both sides
having
have been appalled.
it's being absolutely, and it's disrespectful to not honor, boundaries. It's like one of those things, where a pregnant woman, you know, for the longest time, people just were like, "Oh, that's an invite to go up and touch your stomach,"
Right.
and we shouldn't be doing that. We should not be invading other people's personal space. And so, I mean, if I had clients coming to me with that kind of situation, I would say, first of all, let me validate that you are completely okay in saying that this isn't right. Something that's very, very healthy for our mental health is to have established boundaries. And if we don't have established boundaries and keep those boundaries and people don't respect those boundaries, then we're going to have flare ups of our own anxiety and depressive type symptoms. And so with that, I mean, basically, I would just acknowledge that. And I would say, good for you sticking up for yourself. Or if they weren't able to, what do we need to do to empower you to strengthen your boundaries so that you can tell somebody if they try to do that again, this is not okay. I'm not looking to fight with you, but this is not okay. And this is my boundary. And you crossing that boundary is not all right for me.
Agreed. And thank you for that. Listeners, I want you to really let that sink in, because wherever you sit when it comes to masks or who should be president or how you should vote, what's illegal, what isn't illegal, right now we're so divided. There's so much to get angry about. There's so many ways that our boundaries are being completely tweaked. So Prairie is right on the money that, if you don't honor your feelings about this, you do get into places where you start to erode your own self-esteem by saying, "Oh, I don't want to deal with that," or "I don't want to." I know I can't get angry about every little thing now that goes on, every atrocity that that I see, but I still acknowledge that they happen. That they're happening to other people. They're happening to people that I love and care about, and I'm upset about it, but I literally can't function and do my job, which helps a lot of people, and take care of my partner, and do all the things that I do in my life, and other people that I'm helping financially and all that. I can't do those things if I live in that heightened state of aghastness.
Right. Yeah, there's always two sides to everything. There's always a reason. I have had clients that have situations to where they can't wear masks because of their medical situation, and they've been attacked for that. And I've seen people that they wear masks all the time, and they're attacked, and they don't know that they have somebody that, they're wearing masks, even though they're completely healthy. They have somebody that's a close loved one that's battling cancer or battling, some kind of a lung disorder or anything like that. We don't know why they're making those decisions, but we need to be able to respect that. As long as we're all being respectful of each other, things would be a lot different. But it's really interesting how we've just kind of watched, that how easy it was to bully on social media kind of spread now into, face-to-face living.
Yeah.
People are so much more apt to call people out and bully people.
Oh, I know. I was, and this is, the stress level that we're in too. We don't have the room to have a normal response to anger. I mean, I was at a Walmart the other day, just dropping off my partner, and he clearly is disabled. There is no way that someone can look at him and not realize that he is older and he is disabled. Cane, he's got bruises all over his arms. He bleeds very easily from medication and, all kinds of things. Significantly immune compromised. I have to wear a mask. He has to wear a mask, all of those things. And somebody was so angry that he was having in the handicapped spot, that he was having a hard time getting out of the car, that it was taking him a bit to get his mask on, and I'm helping him as fast as I can and to get the cane ready and so on. And this person just went off. And in the moment,
that's unbelievable.
That's the kind of stuff I'm talking about, where you sit there and you just go, wow. Now, I did see a look of shame, because I couldn't help myself. I got out of the car. I stood in front of him, and I put my hands on my hips, and I stared at them, and I said, "Really? Really?" And they sped off after screaming obscenities. But then I saw the wife, or the woman in the car that was not driving, just completely embarrassed at what was happening. And then I felt for her. What if she's one of the many people that is suffering right now because they are stuck at home with a partner who's abusive? And this is what they're having. There's so many layers to it. It can go on and on, but that still doesn't take away from your, that shouldn't have happened.
Yeah.
That was horrible.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was still an experience for you, and it was unpleasant. So, Yeah, I mean, I'm like you too, though. I'm such an advocate's heart that if I see something like that, I would probably be out there doing the exact same thing. Really, really, and then next thing you know, though. But here's my problem: I would be like, "What's really going on?" And then I'm like, "Oh
Right.
no,
Right.
I need to go."
Exactly.
But yeah, that's always my first thought anymore. I feel like I've really kind of graduated in, when you first start therapy and then you kind of, as years go by, now everybody I look at when I'm like, oh, I wonder why they did that. Or my kids tell me about something that somebody did at school that wasn't very nice. And I'm like, I wonder what's going on with them.
Mhm.
And they always say, well, why didn't you say if I'm okay? I'm like, oh, because I'm here. I'm going to make sure that you're okay. But I wonder if they're okay too. But I wish that we would all start thinking more like that, because then maybe we would be nicer to one another.
Agreed.
There's just no excuse for it. And it really does. It kind of goes back to some of that grade school, the manners that you learn. If you don't have something nice, don't say anything at all. And just generally being respectful of one another. I mean, those are like grade school playground rules that you learn.
I
And
know.
we've all just gotten away from that. We've
I
made it okay through social media, and I just feel like it's
Yeah,
bleeding out into real life now.
it is. And it's interesting because with what's going on with this, historic, unprecedented year, um, I
Mhm.
f- I feel like what I've seen is where somebody's at, not where they pretend they're at, in terms of their consciousness, their behavior, whatever, not the veneer that they put on for polite society but where they really rest in wonderful ways, where I have been around people where I could weep at just the kindness in a horrible
Mhm.
situation. And that was their natural resting place, was this place of kindness. And I've also
Mhm.
seen people where I go, whoa,
Mhm.
I can't tolerate being around you at all, because that's with the forgiveness of, this is a, very difficult time and blah, 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 blah. People are certainly going to evolve out of this and do hopefully their own therapy around their behavior. But some people it's been a hard line, and no excuses for someone's behavior line, and me going, yeah, I'm going to dip out away from that because that's what's healthy for me.
Right, right. Yeah, I think this is just, I mean, the quarantine and the length of time this has gone on, and the schools, and job security and everything. I think that has literally stripped away all of the layers, and everybody is just so raw and vulnerable.
Yep.
And like you were saying, it's interesting, some people, where they are at and who they are at their core, are very kind and looking to help one another, even though they're in a bad place too. Because I mean, we're all kind of struggling with this. I mean,
Yeah.
we've talked about this before. It's very bizarre that, this is a situation kind of like 9/11, but really drawn out. We're all in the same boat. Like, this is not good. And then, some people are just mean at the base level. And again, as a therapist, I immediately look at that and I'm like, what pushed that person to get to that place?
Right.
And because I think that there's hope for everybody, even if they are stripped down and at that point. I think that says to me that something happened over and over and over, to where this person is hardened and angry and bitter, and they're going to project that on everybody else. Um, that's why I have a hard time just absolutely, looking at some of these situations, because I always think the mean people, the mean ones at the very, very core, those are the people that are hurting.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, and those of us at the receiving end are certainly hurting too. However, we don't
Right.
we don't
Mhm.
behave that way, and
Right,
hopefully
right.
we
Oh,
don't.
there's no excuse,
Yeah,
but
oh, I
yeah.
know. Just it's I've yeah, I there was a situation where, we live in this very small little community, and there are a lot of people in this community that are immune compromised. severely,
Mm-hmm.
including my partner. And a party was thrown with a lot of people. And
Hmm.
the thought of a lot of people here was, what on earth? There are people that can't go to parties. There are people that are suffering. There's stuff, going on right now that this is not the time to party. You're just going to have to wait and do it next year or whenever it's a safe, time to do it. But the shallowness of the person that, wanted to do this, took over that. And that means that, those of us that live here, we have to be extra careful because a whole bunch of people that don't live here are not part of our little
Right.
gut biome and our little
Mm-hmm.
safety thing here. That just got blasted out of the water
Right.
in one afternoon. And
Mm-hmm.
that kind of stuff, when we look at the election
Yeah,
as
for
an
sure.
example, is where we go, okay, I can scream and yell. I can point out the idiocy, the shallow, the plus health danger, life, blah, 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 blah. And it's going to go nowhere. Or I can just continue to do what I do, which is take the precautions that I do, not be involved in an event like that, not be involved with anyone who thought it was okay to go to it, and just keep to myself. Because you can't make
Right.
someone,
Yeah.
you can't make someone that shallow and self-centered see what they're
Right.
doing that's damaging to people.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, there's just a lot of bad decisions being made as well. Just, I think people, again, are overwhelmed. And when, anxiety and depression and, all these symptoms that are, either exacerbated from a pre-existing mental health issue, or, there are a lot of new cases of this coming up. I just think that there's a lot of bad decision making going on. People are, focusing more internally. There's a lot of time that they've had to spend with themselves or just to right with their family, and I think that that's really reflecting. One thing that we see is like the domestic violence has just increased tenfold. It's
Yep.
just heartbreaking, because, everybody's just so overwhelmed and not, and it wasn't necessarily even a healthy situation before, but now they're making terrible decisions and they're hurting themselves and hurting other people. And it's just, it's been very concerning as far as, mental health goes. And, the other piece of that is access to mental health services it's harder now.
Yep.
Everything has to be telehealth and finding out, is the insurance still going to cover your telehealth?
Yep.
Because it did there for a while, but how many people do you know when they're really stressed out want to deal with an insurance company and call and ask, are you going to cover this? And then when they don't, or they're going to call and fight with them and say, well, you said you were going to do it, but now you're not going to do it. I mean, I'm seeing that happen. And a lot of people are just like, I quit. I'm not going to get help for this because it's causing me more stress trying to figure this whole mental health thing out. So I'm just going to be secluded and alone. And so it's just really been, I feel like there's a lot of changes that need to be made as far as, services for people and how we address that.
Absolutely. So now to the positive part. How the heck do we deal with, when we say pre and post election stress? Election stress is the election, but there's a whole lot more going on than just an election. So what are some things that, that we can all do and I always like to preface it with, this is the real stuff. We're not talking about, oh, we'll just take more bubble baths and do your meditation and read some book. No, let's get to the nitty gritty, real stuff.
Right. Yeah. Well, one thing, especially, pre election, I've been seeing a lot of studies, and this is something that I like to bring up because it is positive when we're talking about our own political beliefs. But there have been studies that show political participation, meaning like researching and voting, can actually benefit mental health distress. For example, being politically active, it can offer people a sense of empowerment, and that can help relieve stress. Um, there was also a study showing that political activism is associated with some forms of happiness and social well-being. And I think that has to do with having that confidence in your decisions because you've done the research on the topics. You know what topics and platforms are important to you, and you have that internal stability knowing what you're voting for versus not letting the fear of everyone asserting their own opinions shake you. When you know what you're voting for and it supports your belief system, then you're less likely to be shook by some of the claims that are circulating social media and on the news. So, doing the research and voting accordingly to what matches you, that right there has been shown to, they've actually done studies and shown a positive impact on mental health right there.
Excellent. Excellent. Yes. Voting your conscience. Would that be another way of saying that?
For sure. Yeah. A big thing is that I hear people say so many times, I can't believe that they would feel this way. Well, you can't believe that anybody would feel a certain way because you don't know what they've been through. You don't know their personal life experiences. You haven't seen what they've seen or experienced what they've experienced. Some issues are more important to other people than other issues. And in that way, if people are doing their research, finding, what are the issues that are most important to you? And then doing the research and actually following through, I think then they can make a decision that they can feel good about, and they don't worry when they see all of these claims coming around from all sides that say this or that. They actually know, okay, this is what's important to me. I did my research. I think that just makes them be a lot more confident in, what they're thinking and how they're gonna vote.
Agreed. Agreed. And I think too, man, there's so many times I take deep breaths, and there are things that I was starting a new company as an example, with the amazing people, um, last year, towards the end of last year. And all of that got put on hold because I know that I literally do not have the bandwidth in many
Mhm.
capacities to start a new company with what was coming down the pike. So there are things that you are totally allowed to just put on hold. Like, you don't have to give excuses to people. You don't have to
Mhm.
feel bad about it. Like, it's just like me dipping completely out of social media. I don't even remember the last time I went on Instagram, as an example, or Twitter, or
Mhm.
my LinkedIn. Somebody does that for me because I just, you know,
Mhm.
I don't want to know all this stuff. It's too much. And there's nothing wrong with that. There are people I haven't spoke to that I absolutely care about. I so care about, and they haven't spoken to me. Um,
Mhm.
and that's okay too, because there's a lot going on. So I think, people realize that you can give yourself permission to dip out.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, if you're in a place where it's too toxic or it's too overwhelming for you, you don't owe anybody an explanation. It's again, it comes back to those boundaries. Is this okay for me? Is this going to impact me in a negative way later? Do I want to deal with the emotional fallout of this? No. Back out. Have those set boundaries for not only for others, but for yourself.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I know,
Mhm.
it's been real good for me because I don't have the emotional room that I normally do. What's been good is this heightened awareness around setting those boundaries and
Mm.
holding those boundaries in place,
Right.
because there are people that it was not healthy for me to be around them at all or as
Mhm.
much. And so, even with hurt feelings and you owe me an explanation and blah blah, and me saying no I don't,
Mhm.
um that's okay too. It's been real good at helping you. Here's the perfect excuse. There's a lot going on right now. I don't want to deal with you.
Mhm. Exactly, exactly. And then, I mean, and that's dealing with other people. Now, um, another thing I think we need to do to consider our own mental health is knowing your limits. I think it's really important to stay informed, but consider how much news you take in and how that information is affecting you. And if you're preoccupied by national events and it's interfering with your daily life, this may be a sign to cut back on your news intake and limit social media discussions. So setting limits for yourself, even, outside of social settings as well.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. There's so many of my friends that big advocates post everything that they would post would be inspiring or uplifting, or I'm here with you,
Mhm.
blah blah blah, and then watch them go off the rails on social media because they're struggling, and then watch them go, yeah, I'm out.
Right. Right.
Like,
Yep.
I can't
Yeah.
even be here for y'all. I'm out. And that's
Mhm.
so okay.
Right.
It's actually healthy. The amount of room that you're left to have critical thinking and empathy and take care of yourself in a much kinder way. The time that you're left with when you pull off of social media or news sites or what have you
Mhm.
is astounding.
Right, right. And to take that even further, a lot of times people they're posting about all these issues. I think, take that a step further, actually do something with that, get involved, find meaningful ways to get involved in your community. And, instead of just posting about something, identify the issues that are important to you and research organizations that work on those issues. And that right there, that can help so much with mental health, is actually moving forward and doing something versus getting in Facebook fights with people, because it's not going to help you. Go get involved. And that right there, I mean, that's empowering, making a difference in your community.
Yeah, that was something I said to someone who spends an inordinate amount of time. Well, I don't know them anymore, but did spend just hours and hours and hours every day on TikTok watching dancing, which whatever. But and then
Mhm.
going down a rabbit hole of conspiracy theories, some of them that are horrifying, some of the conspiracy theories that are things that I experienced in my childhood that I got I finally just said, you know what? I don't want to hear this nonsense anymore. You don't know what you're talking about. I actually lived some of what you're talking about. I'm a
Mhm.
survivor of those things. How dare you make light of it
Right.
and with this
Mhm.
ridiculous, go to an actual organization that's been around for 40 years that works with child abuse and sex trafficking and whatever,
Mhm.
and volunteer your TikTok hours to that organization
Mhm.
on what's really going on. You don't even need to show up there. There's stuff that you can do on a computer instead of this other nonsense. And, that didn't go over very well.
Right.
My saying that.
Yeah, yeah, I could imagine. Yeah, they probably didn't like being, actually, getting saying, "Hey, take initiative here. Do
Right.
something with that," versus just, chirping at everybody online, because again, it doesn't do anything.
It
It doesn't
doesn't.
help anything.
This is where we've interviewed so many cult experts and deprogrammers of people that have gotten involved in cults, and a lot of what we're seeing going on with social media, with the electoral process, all of this is so akin to some very destructive cult techniques. And so it's really important for all of us to know, be aware that those things are designed to suck you into a rabbit hole, to take you out of the angst that you're in, and they don't take it away from you and replace it
Mhm.
with anything good.
Exactly, exactly. I came across this term, I think it's been around for a few years, but I hadn't really heard it, and it's called doom scrolling. And it just talks about like the tendency of us to continue to scroll through social media or through news articles looking for, what's an issue. And then what happens is you try to find the solution. Well, they're going to tell me at the end of the article that this is okay, right? That this is
right.
Something that they've got under control. And a lot of them don't. They're just kind of cliffhangers. And so then they start researching the topic and they go down this rabbit hole, like you were saying, and you don't know what news sources are accurate and what aren't. And you just continue the scrolling, looking for like something to make you feel better, when in fact, that's not real anymore. What sucks people in are the articles that scare you. And next thing you know, you're looking for the answer to it, and you're in 10 more articles that scared you to death. And
right.
So the, term doom scrolling, I was like, oh yeah, that absolutely sounds like what's happening a lot. I think we're going to start hearing more and more of that. But
Agreed.
Yeah, I think that's kind of what's been happening with, this political stuff is, people look for the answers and they just go down this rabbit hole of, what's real, what's not real. And, that's, knowing your limits. And then again, I think like actually doing something about it, having a voice, doing the research, voting, getting involved in your community with things that matter to you. I just think those are all, positive, impactful things that we can do. And I think that it will take away, like you were saying, when you were at that place where I've lived this, I know this isn't correct.
Mm-hmm.
That knowledge gave you power, and
Right.
we need to educate ourselves. And then we can rest in that and know, I'm making the right decision for myself, and I'm not going to let this scary stuff that, this fear mongering that seems to happen so much, impact me anymore.
Absolutely. And, in terms of your stress, if you haven't voted yet, vote, and don't. This is a hard one. Of course, take your phone with you. And I say this because I've had so many of my friends that have been waiting in line and they're like on their phone all day. And one of my friends who is a forensic psychiatrist, okay, and, Harvard, blah, blah, blah. She calls me from being in line and says, oh my gosh, all I'm doing is standing here reading about how we need to be careful at the polls. And then, so now I'm spending the time looking for suspicious people that are going to try to knock us, off. And I'm like, see, that right there is a perfect example of, you like to play Pac-Man,
Exactly.
right? That's from your childhood.
Mm-hmm.
Bring something else to play Pac-Man, or disable news sites and stuff like that on your phone while you're there. Of course, you can, re-enable them, but like really try, because she literally stood in line to vote for 8.5 hours.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
That's what we're seeing happen. So even then,
that's stressful in itself.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. So even then, even in these times when we have to do things that are a big impact, and we are doing something good, even then, being aware of your self-care, like don't be lackadaisical about it. Don't be flippant about your own self-care. Care about yourself like you would your grandma and her well-being. You wouldn't let grandma, do this and have all this stuff around that could trigger something. Like do that same thing for yourself.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And, like for my listeners with, like the animal stuff, I'm like, treat that like you would your animal. If there's something that's upsetting your dog and your dog's yanking on a leash and trying to get away, they're immediately like, oh my gosh, I'm going to go help get this, this trigger away from my dog because I love my dog. And, that was a funny one. I was having a conversation with one of the clients because they were saying, I just, love my dog. And when I come home, I am like right there greeting the animal, and I just love the animal, and I don't care that they knock the trash over. But like other family members, I'm like, oh, hey, So as far, I always tell like for my clients specifically, I'm like, yeah, if somebody was messing with your cat right there, what would you do? And they're like, oh my goodness, I would not let that happen.
Hell
Like,
hath
okay,
no
take care of
fury.
yourself. Like yeah. Mm-hmm. There you go. See?
And you know what? They're not like, I noticed this is
So,
the sweetest thing. I noticed that my dogs are acting out right now. Well, that's because the humans in the household are stressed. And so they are kind of acting out, like pulling away from the leash, and they just chewed through yet another halter. And the other day I got up and there's trash strewn around the yard. And normally they just don't care about that stuff, but obviously they're having a stress response. So also realizing that, but I'll tell you what, I go out to the barn and my horse can tell. Like there are times when I do not need to go in the field because she can just read my anxiety or whatever. And she's like, I'm out. And she runs to the other side of the pasture.
yep.
But my donkey
Mhm.
I'm not kidding. I could be in the worst place ever, and he will walk up to me and put his head on my shoulder. I don't know what it is
Oh, I
about this
love that.
donkey.
He's
He
a
just,
space holder. Yeah, he's
yes.
what we call in the equine therapy. He can hold that space. He has the capacity to do it.
Oh,
His boundaries are different than your horse's boundaries. See, animals have boundaries too, but they actually adhere to them because they're prey animals and they're just like, I'm going to keep myself safe. So we could take a lesson out of their book. Know your boundaries and stick to them.
that's true, because he's in
For
there
sure.
to keep Secret calm because she's a bit of a high-strung horse. That's why he's in there.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's kind of amazing that the way that they do that. But so I'd say if you guys have a cool donkey around, go spend some time or find that animal
Right.
that will get in your lap no matter what's going on with you. Not that the other animals aren't important too, but the space holder, like you're talking about, that's another pre and
The space
post
holders.
election. Yeah.
Mhm.
Like find those
Yeah.
animals. So Prairie, can you share with listeners, some last tips or things that people need to be aware of or help themselves with when it comes to, pre and post election stress?
Right. I think it just comes down to taking care of yourself and seeking support when you need it. Stress, it can have a physical and an emotional impact on your overall health. So, seeking out activities that you enjoy that help you recharge and reduce your stress, like, spending time with the animals and, like we were saying, all the stuff that everybody knows, but they don't necessarily do: eating well, sleeping well, avoiding ineffective coping mechanisms like alcohol and substance use. And just I think as far as speaking specifically about election stress, I think just knowing where you stand, doing the research, empowering yourself with knowledge, and then being okay with where you stand, and get involved too. Not only once you've researched those topics and you've identified issues that are important to you, go help and research organizations that work on those issues. And I think that right there is something that can be incredibly impactful when it comes to the stressors that politics and everything can bring on.
Mhm. Wise words. And if you love animals, have a pet. Love your pets right now. If you don't have pets, uh, go out in nature, since you can't go love on other people's pets easily. Oh my goodness, that's a huge de-stressor.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. They don't have any kind of opinions or, preconceived notions about anything. And so it's really kind of nice just to have that unbiased, unconditional companion.
Absolutely. So, Prairie, can you share with our listeners where they can find out more about you and about the organization that you work with?
Sure. You can find me at www.journeyswithprairie.com. And also, a lot of my information and a lot of blog posts I have on certapet.com.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for reaching out to do this show and coming on.
Absolutely. Well, I hope that we're kind of nearing the end of all of this
Me
madness,
too.
and we can start to settle in and settle down, and hopefully, we'll start to see that come to a head and be done with it.
Absolutely. Listeners, thank you for tuning in to another episode of Mental Health News Radio. Hi, listeners. I'll make it quick. These are some really cool places that give discounts and other cool things for listeners of Mental Health News Radio Network. If you want to get amazing help with healing from narcissistic abuse, go to healfromanarcissist.com. If you want CBD products that are the best of the best, I use them myself, go to proze.com and use the code mentalhealth20, mentalhealth20. If you want to get daily perk ups that help retrain your brain to think more positively, go to perkupdaily.com. And also, just because this one's fun, snarkycandles.com. I guarantee you'll love them. Snarky with a Y, SNARKY candles.com. And don't forget, if you want to hear all the shows on the network about first responders, you can go to firstrespondermentalhealthnetwork.com, and all of our shows that focus on narcissistic abuse, narcissisticabusehealingnetwork.com. Thanks for listening, and back to the show.
But will you ride the low, low, lows with me? Will you ride the low, low, lows with me?
One thing you can always count on at Mental Health News Radio Network and my show is that there will always be dogs around. Why? They are natural healers, excellent for your mental health. The original therapy dog Miles has something to say in just a moment. For now, please check out all of our amazing shows at mentalhealthnewsradionetwork.com and all your favorite podcast apps. Until next time, I'm Kristin Walker, and thank you for listening.
Me tonight, and I can ride the low, low, lows with me. I can ride the low, low, lows with me till my vision clears up perfectly. I can ride the low, low, lows with me.
Good boy.